Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Luttrell Staffing Group's very first presentation and what we expect will be a helpful and educational series of webinars. I'm Scott Moorfield, Director of Marketing here at Luttrell Staffing Group. Going forward, at least quarterly and possibly more often, we'd like to bring high-quality guests and topics and provide access free as a value add to our clients. As we delve into this presentation, keep in mind that handouts are on the right. There's several. They're already uploaded for you. And you can also type in any questions you've got in the chat function, and we'll go through those at the end. Today's topic is obviously close to my heart as a marketing guy, and it's especially relevant in today's crazy times, recruiting for the rebound. You know, I'm just old enough to remember what recruiting was like during the Great Recession, the 2009-2010. It wasn't so much recruiting then as it was selecting from a bevy of applicants just begging to be sent to work. That was easy, that part of it anyway. Today, times are even more uncertain, but recruiting has become increasingly difficult, as if it wasn't already hard enough before the pandemic. Obviously, there are a lot of factors at play, from coronavirus to government giving people a race to stay home, but none of that makes recruiting impossible. It just makes it tougher. Our presenter today, Tom Erb, is someone Luttrell Staffing Group has worked with over the years, both as a consultant and a presenter at our leadership events. He's got over 25 years of recruiting industry experience and has helped hundreds of companies create and execute effective recruiting strategies. A highly sought after national speaker who has given presentations to the American Staffing Association, TechServe Alliance, New York Staffing Association, and others. Tom has also been interviewed by outlets like the Wall Street Journal and Monster.com. An HR Examiner included him in their list of the top 25 online influencers in staffing. In other words, this guy knows what he's talking about, and we're thrilled to have him. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tom Erb to talk about recruiting for the rebound.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thank you to the Luttrell Group for having me, and thank you for everybody to taking some time out to spend with us and talk about something that's obviously extremely important right now. Scott mentioned that he is just old enough to remember the Great Recession. I am much old enough to remember the Great Recession, as well as the previous recession that happened right around 9/11. So, and you know, to add to his point, there are some similarities. There are some things that we can learn from it. There are some things we're already seeing that are similar. But there's also an awful lot of stuff that's different this time, and as we all know. But there's a lot of opportunity for us if we just get in front of what is the rebound, and we're already seeing a lot of signs of the rebound. So I'm going to talk today about what we're seeing out in the market, what we can continue to see. There's still a lot of uncertainty, so we're going to take some educated guesses or assumptions, but also what we can do about it, and what are some specific things that you can take away from this hour that we're going to spend together and apply immediately to improve your teams. And so let's go ahead and jump in here. You know, the one thing that I tell everybody about is that we are inevitably going to go through ups and downs, right? Historically, every 5 to 7 years, we go through a downturn in the economy. We had actually gone 10 years going in an up trajectory, and many people, including people on this call, never had been in a down economy before. So it was unusual already. And then, of course, we have this event that really immediately caused this downturn in the economy. But every single time we go through one of these things, the best companies come out stronger. And I equate it to the Tour de France. If you think about that, the cycling race, where you've got 100 cyclists together, and they all kind of stay bunched together when things are flat. They all stay bunched together when things are going down. It's when they go up the hills that the best ones get separation. And right now we are going up a hill. We are going through a time in the economy with all sorts of other things going on right now, where we have the opportunity to separate ourselves from our talent competition. So some things to think about is that the first off is scarce talent becomes much more readily available. I do consulting mostly to staffing and recruiting companies, but also to corporations about their recruiting strategy. And I am involved in the selection process for many of my clients. I talk to their finalists. I can tell you that the talent that I am seeing them get right now is better than what's been on the market for at least 5 years, probably closer to back to the last recession. We are seeing people that are available that were not available 4 or 5 months ago and will not be available a month or two from now. And so there's a great opportunity for us to go out there and have conversations with talent. The other piece to this is that our talent competition thins out. And what I mean by that is not just that we have competitors go away because they go out of business, but we're seeing more so is that they go away because they scale back on their recruiting. And in many cases, they completely gut their recruiting teams, completely gut sometimes their HR teams, gut their recruiting budgets. And so what happens is when things start to pick up, they scramble and they've got this rebuild period. And that gives us an opportunity for us to go out and pick up better talent because we don't have as much competition. And then it really gives us a chance to take a look and say, okay, how can we become better coming out of this? How can we upgrade our talent moving forward? Because now is the opportunity to do that. I want to talk about a couple of things because, Scott touched on it a little bit on his intro, but what we're going through right now is bad. From an unemployment standpoint, we are at unemployment levels that we've never seen before. But it's not that simple. We need to really dig into it much more granular because this is a weird recession. This is a recession that I like to equate to a tornado hitting. In a town that has a tornado hit, you may see a house that's completely leveled, and right beside it, you see a house that has been untouched. That's what we're seeing a lot of. We're seeing that there are certain parts of the country that have been hit much harder by this. There are obviously certain types of skill sets, positions, careers, industries, professions, all of those things that have been hit harder and others have been unscathed. We're even seeing that within certain types of professions and industries as well. And the other thing that I want to bring up is that while we are seeing record unemployment, and we had really low unemployment before, we didn't start at zero. So it's not as if we are at 11% and we were at zero in March. We actually started out at about 4% unemployment, between 3.5% to 4% unemployment across most of the country. And if we take a look at this pie chart, this represents what the talent pool was pre-crisis. This was in February and beginning of March. And as I mentioned, unemployment was running about 3.5% to 4% in most areas. We were at all-time lows, but we still had unemployment. We still had 4% unemployment roughly. Add to that, at any given time, we have about 9%, according to studies, about 9% of the workforce is actively looking for a job. Those that are employed are looking for a job. So about 13% total of the workforce was actively looking for a job, either in a job or unemployed. We also have this group called semi-active, and semi-active means that they are not quite active, but they are a little more interested in getting ready to start a job search. And so they're starting at the beginning, maybe they're checking out some job boards, but they're not applying to many, if any, jobs. Maybe they have an updated resume, maybe they don't. So about 25% of the workforce fell into semi-active. 37% fell into what is traditionally known as passive candidates. And a lot of times people lump in passive and semi-active candidates, but that's actually not true. They do act differently. Passive candidates, they're not looking for a job. They're content or even happy in the job that they're at. But if you presented them with an opportunity that appealed to them, they would listen and potentially that would get them to move. And then the last piece are the not moving, 25%. So this is where we were prior to the crisis. If you look on the left-hand side, some other things to consider. We had at that time 1.4 million more jobs than job seekers. We were already deep in the hole of having not enough talent out there. And I've said for years that when we do hit a recession, that we're still going to have a need to hire people. And what's going to happen is, because we've got such a gap between number of jobs and people looking for jobs, that even a really deep recession is not going to completely do away with that. And that's what we're seeing, especially as we start to bounce back. We had over 7 million open jobs in February. February seems like it's 15 years ago, but February is not. It's 5 months ago. So, or 6 months ago now, I guess. And we had 19 states were at their historic low unemployment. So unlike other recessions, we actually were extremely healthy the month before. And going into that, so we had such a hit going into that had an impact, but we started out at a better place than we did before, at least from a recruiting standpoint. Let's fast forward to today. We are now, as of last week, at 11.1% unemployment across the country. We've got other stats that talk about others that are getting unemployment benefits, but those typically aren't in your pool of candidates anyways. We're talking about gig workers, we're talking about independent contractors, we're talking about sole proprietors of companies, we're talking about small business owners, things like that that were eligible for alternate types of unemployment benefits. The unemployment number that most of us are looking at is that 11%. So if you think about that, we didn't go from 0 to 11%. We went from 4% to 11%. Still a big jump, but not huge, not as big as you might think about. And we're back down to 11%. We got much higher than that. If we then kind of extrapolate and pull from different pieces of this, you can see that if we go back and take a look, it really didn't change it that much. So now we've gone from 13% of the workforce was actively looking for a job to 20% theoretically looking for a job. And I say theoretically because Scott mentioned it, the unemployment benefits were enhanced to the point where many, if not most, people on unemployment really have not been actively looking for a job. And we'll talk about that a lot later. My point is, we still have 80% of the workforce out there, actually 89% of the workforce that we have access to that is not gaining enhanced unemployment benefits. So when we talk about, oh, nobody's going back to work, nobody wants to take a job, we can't find any candidates as we go through this because they're all on unemployment, really only 11% and only an additional 7% are on unemployment. We still have access to 89% of people that are on a job now that we can potentially lure to our company for a different job and a better job. On the left-hand side, you'll see that where we're at now, all but 3 states hit historic high unemployment back in June, actually, and as of June, excuse me. Most of it hit earlier. The amazing thing to me in that statistic is that there's still 3 states that had higher unemployment than we had in April and May. 31 states, however, right now are under 10%. We have 4 states that are under 6%, and there are states including Kentucky that are at 4.3%. They're at about the same unemployment as they were before this. We also have 4 states that are above 15% that skews that 11%. There's also happen to be a couple, 2 of the 4 of those are the largest states in the US. So there's a lot of different factors that go into this. The other thing I want to point out is that unemployment is all over the place. Unemployment is not like your typical recession where there's high unemployment across the board or in most areas. As you are not surprised at all, leisure and hospitality has taken the biggest hit. It's almost 29% unemployment. This was as of the end of June. Oil and gas, we know that that's taking a hit as well. And then there are other ones. If you go down and look at wholesale and retail trade, well, that includes retail stores, but it also includes online, which is offsetting it. Online retail is doing very well. Brick and mortar retail, as we all know, is not. You look down and there are still some professions and industries that are actually doing much better and don't have the unemployment. I can tell you, working with staffing companies across the US, and we work with hundreds of all different types of professions, all different types of industries, verticals, markets, market sizes, is that almost 100% at this point of the staffing firms we work with have more open positions than they have people. And so we're already seeing this rebound coming back, and it's going to continue to accelerate, especially depending on what Congress is going to do the next couple of weeks to extend some benefits. That'll play a big part in this. I want to share a couple other data points that are really important. This is the nowcast report from the Federal Reserve of New York. Federal Reserve of New York basically goes out and finds all these different leading indicators. You'll see the ones, several of them up at the top here. Leading indicators for the economy. And then based on that, it creates this nowcast report, which gives us a sense of where the GDP, gross domestic product for the US is. You can see we took a big hit, obviously, in May, beginning of May, and we immediately started to bounce back within a couple of weeks. Here's what we're seeing now, and this was pulled as of this morning. This has leveled off for the last about 6 weeks. It's not because there are a lack of jobs, and I'm not an economist, but what I can say confidently, just from what I see, my perspective, it is because there's a major headwind, and there are several headwinds that we'll talk about, but the most major one is the unemployment benefits. There are jobs that people can go back to, and that people are financially better off staying on unemployment up until the past week or so when those benefits have expired. If we go back and think about 2008 and 2009, for those of you that remember that, and for those of you who don't, I'll tell you, we had enhanced unemployment benefits back then with the administration, where they extended unemployment for 99 weeks. Didn't add any extra money, didn't give them an extra couple $100 or anything like that, just extended it 99 weeks. In the staffing industry, we struggled mightily to get people to go back to work then. Even then, when they were making half to 2/3 of what they normally would make, we struggled to get them back. So we've got a lot of headwinds that are coming up against us, and even with potentially not having those additional enhanced unemployment benefits, it's likely we'll continue to see challenges with unemployment getting people to come off of that. And I'll talk in much more detail about that in a minute. However, if we take a look at the staffing index from the American Staffing Association, we see that business is growing for the staffing industry. And the reason why I bring this up is because the staffing industry is a leading indicator of the economy. It is a leading indicator. It is what they consider a bellwether indicator, where we are usually ahead of what's coming. And even though you can see the GDP forecast has flattened out, contract staffing continues to increase. What I am seeing across the country with my clients is that companies that have never used staffing before, or companies that have not used staffing for a long time, are coming back because they're having challenges getting their people to come back off of furloughs or layoffs or hire new people, and they don't have the resources to put into it to really bring them back. So it's shifting to staffing, and staffing does continue to increase. So this is a good indicator that the economic recovery is trying to continue to come back, and will continue to do that. You can see we had a little dip there. That was July 4th. That's the only reason it dipped a little bit, not nearly as much as 2018, 2019. Some more good news, more really promising news. The Wall Street Journal does a survey of economists, and based on that, they put predictions in here of what the GDP is going to do. And you can see almost universally, they've got all the little plot points for all the different economists. With a couple of exceptions, all the economists felt that we were going to take a strong leap forward in Q3. Now we're seeing that kind of flatten out a little bit. We haven't seen it because of unemployment and other factors, but they're also showing that for the next 7 quarters, we are going to see higher than normal GDP growth. So this is going to continue for a while. In fact, if you look at the absolute lowest GDP growth here, it's higher than any of the previous 3 years. And so all of this, again, lends itself that if you have not already started experiencing the rebound, you're going to, and we need to get in front of it. So what do we do with all this stuff? Well, the important piece is to keep recruiting. your competition for talent in many cases has backed off, while as other competitors for talent are taking advantage of this, particularly with like the PPP program for companies that have qualified for that. That gives them some extra cash, gives them some extra stability, and many people are starting to invest utilizing that. But also we need to think about, if we're out there recruiting today, we're not hiring them tomorrow. Now for your more blue collar entry level positions or lightly skilled positions, you are hiring them quicker. But if you're doing anybody that's in a more of a professional search, the average search takes about 60 to 90 days. So what we start doing today in August is not going to pan out until October or November of this year. And we should look very different one way or the other in the next 60 to 90 days. Again, previously unavailable talent is now accessible and open to talking. So we need to be talking to people in our organization and saying, now is the time to be in recruiting mode. Let's get ahead of this. I use the analogies, actually it's not mine, somebody came up with it. They said, surfers don't wait for the wave to appear. They anticipate the wave so that they can get on top of it. If you wait until the wave appears, it's too late. That's what we're doing right now. We can't be waiting for the wave to appear and then get ready. We need to be anticipating it. And based on all the numbers that I showed you before, those are all very good indicators that if it's not already on top of you, it's going to be. By the way, in the handouts, you can download all of those. I actually have this PowerPoint presentation. Feel free to download it and do whatever you want with it. Share it with people in your organization. Show them the numbers that I've been sharing with you to say, hey, look, this isn't what Tom Erb made up. This is data from all of these different credible, respected sources. I talked about headwinds. Here's the problem, and this is what makes very unique this recession compared to past ones. We have a group of headwinds that are unlike anything we've ever had before. And what I mean is that we have these complications that are making it even harder to recruit right now. We all know about the enhanced government benefits. You can't turn on the TV without hearing about it right now. And it's very real. And we're going to talk more about that and what we can do about that. We are starting to see school and childcare issues again as we go back into the fall school year. So we now have people that are making tough decisions and saying, how can I go back to work when I have children that are going to be staying at home again in many cases, either partially or full-time. Our school just went to full-time online, no in-person, and many others are doing similar things. How do I help him or her continue to be educated? How do I watch them or have them watched and still go back to work? And so that's a real issue that we're seeing again, once again. Seems like we just got out of that a few months ago, and we did. The fear of infection. We're seeing this more and more. It's also part of this childcare and school discussion. You're seeing a lot of pushback from teachers and teachers unions on this, as well as all others. The people are afraid to go and get infected or get one of their family members infected or multiple family members infected. And then the last one is really unique to what's going on, and I call it a moral stance, is that we are very divided as a country as to what to do, and we've become very sharply divided in this. Wear a mask so you're not killing my grandma. Don't wear a mask because it's violating your rights, and then we got people in between. But regardless of what you think about this, regardless politically what you think, and I'm not making any political statement here, it is a reality and it is something that we need to deal with, because there are people that are opting out right now because they're saying it is not right for me to go to work. Not only is there fear, not only do I have these other things going on, but I don't believe that ethically or morally it's the right thing to do. So we got all these different things that we got to deal with. So let's talk about the enhanced unemployment benefits first. And you all, I'm sure, are aware of what's going on now with this and has been going on for a while. As we speak right now, if you're watching live or watching recorded, it happened today. As we speak, they're trying to figure out in Congress what they're going to pass as another stimulus package, most likely to help people on unemployment and have some sort of extension of that. There will be some sort of extension of that. But if you take a look at this report here, this shows that all sorts of these different industries and professions, people are making more on unemployment. And yes, we know that, but I think this is a really good chart to see just how much more and what specifically industries are benefiting from this right now. And conversely, will not benefit when it does go away, which has gone away temporarily, but once it goes away for good. And so you can see that some of these aren't a surprise: food service, janitorial, transportation, construction, but some of these are. Even teachers, in many cases, are making more. Nurses and therapists are making 75% of what they did. We're seeing that there are RNs and LPNs that are opting out not to work for a variety of reasons: health, childcare, school, all of that, because they're still making enough that it makes more sense for them to stay at home than it does to maybe go get a babysitter, go back to work, all those types of things. Even information technology, you can see overall is in about the 60-65% replacement rate. Also, the standard UI benefit period has been extended to 39 weeks, and that continues to run. That is still in effect. The additional $600 per week ran through 7/31. It's going to be extended. And the University of Chicago did a study that was probably the most striking of this. 68% of workers on unemployment are making more, and the median replacement rate is 134%, which means that the average person on unemployment is making 34% more than they did when they were laid off in their job. And 1 out of 5 workers, 20%, receive twice as much, 200% or more of what they made before. So these are huge issues for us to try and get people to come back from unemployment. Add on top of this another thing that has been mostly forgotten but is still out there and is going to start to come into effect here in the fall, is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, particularly as it applies to child care issues because of the coronavirus. And this applies to companies of 500 employees or less. 500 or above don't have to comply with this, but 500 employees or less, if an employee needs to take time off to care for a child because their child care or their school does not allow them to go and attend there, they can take 2 weeks of paid sick leave at 2/3 the regular rate. The company gets reimbursed for that, but you're still losing out on the person. Once that's exhausted, they can do an additional 10 weeks under paid FMLA at 2/3 of their regular rate. This runs through the end of the year. So depending on how unemployment goes, this is going to be another fallback once people kind of figure this out. They're not getting as much, but they're still getting enough that it makes more sense for them to stay at home than it does to go to work and figure out what they're going to do with childcare and education and all that. So this can have a potentially significant impact, and we need to be aware of it. Some of you probably have already seen the impact of this. All right, so what do we do about this? So some tips on bringing back employees. First of all, this isn't the same as in the past where we've had people on unemployment benefits that just frankly don't want to come back and work. We have all sorts of these financial issues, health issues, school work issues, childcare issues, all these other things that are making this a very tough choice for people. And so what we need to be doing is being compassionate. We need to be understanding. We need to be enthusiastic and positive. And we need to listen to all their concerns and issues. Why is it that maybe they are hesitant to come back? Is it because of their unemployment benefits being lucrative? Is it because they're concerned about safety? You know, all of those things. And then we want to be flexible whenever possible. The flexible companies are going to win this. I've said it before. I said it before the coronavirus even came into it. The most flexible companies will win. And that's what happened, by the way, when we hit this. The companies that were already used to doing some work from home, they were able to move into this real easy. The ones that had fought it, said they couldn't do it, were pushing back on it. They had to adapt, and it took some time, and it caused, in many cases, some damage. We also want to talk to them about the legal impact. You know, refusing unemployment still gets reported and what our obligation is, but then also give them time to process and decide what they want to do. Don't just say, hey, ultimatum, take it or leave it, do you want to come back? You know, here's some areas to consider as well. One is, can I have them return on a part-time basis so that I can preserve their federal benefits? So when this new stimulus package does go through, which they're saying probably next week, there will be some sort of enhanced unemployment benefits still. A couple $100, $400, $600, something. As long as they are getting any state benefits, they qualify for that. And that, in many cases, is the biggest chunk. So is there a way for us to bring them back on a part-time basis where we can have them work, but they are still getting that, and potentially it also supports them from a childcare standpoint, especially in the markets where it's 2 on, 3 off, 3 on, 2 off, 2 on, 2 off. So can we do that? What are some financial incentives to return? I just heard just today an example of a company that was bringing people back and they were paying them, it was in a warehouse environment, they're paying them $15 an hour, but then they were paying them $3 an hour bonus for every week they had perfect attendance. So if they worked 40 hours and they had perfect attendance, they got an extra $120 on top of what they were getting. We're seeing a lot more of that, and yes, it takes a chunk, and it obviously is a financial impact on companies, but so is not having people. So what financial incentives can we do potentially to get them a return? Can we have flexible schedules? And I know a lot of companies really struggle with this. I know a lot of companies don't spend much time trying to figure this out. Now's the time to try and figure this out, because you're going to be the one that wins. And this is where you're going to be able to pull talent from your talent competitors. Can they work from home? Obviously, if they're working an assembly line, they can't do that. But for other types of positions, can we continue to have them work from home? Also, if you have detailed safety plans, then do that. There is a great safety plan template on the American Staffing Association's website, and it's for anybody. It's not just for ASA members, and it's not just for staffing companies. It is a very comprehensive plan, and if you just go to ASA, which is americanstaffing.net, and you can type into their return to work plan, I believe, something like that, or just do a Google search or whatever, and you'll find it. And great stuff to start with, great template to get you going if you don't have one. And then what's our contingency plan for the lack of returning employees? Because there's only so much you can do internally. You most likely, you have a recruiting team that is set up to handle a certain level. It may even be down a little bit right now. And so how are we going to have that contingency plan? Are we going to leverage staffing companies as partners for us to help us, or are we going to do other things to do that, to be able to support that? As you get into this, one of the things that we've seen has taken a major hit is online reviews. And I can't overstress enough the importance of online reviews. There have been studies done that have shown that this is the #1 most important content for job seekers when researching an employer. We do recruiting. I have a recruiting division that recruits for staffing companies, recruits internal positions for staffing companies, sales reps, recruiters, all the way up to executive level. We see it all the time. We see people who back out of interviews because of the online reviews. We see companies that we cannot get anybody to interview with them because of their online reviews. This is an important piece. And right now, especially if you've done some layoffs, if you've had to make tough decisions, it's quite possible that you've had some negative online reviews. 1 in 3 workers have actually declined an offer due to online reviews, and almost half of millennials, which some people dismiss a little bit. Oh, the young people, pay more attention. The oldest millennial is now almost 41 years old. The youngest is now 26 years old, and millennials make up the largest group within the workforce now. So this is no longer, hey, the kid's out of college. The millennials are now the major work group out there, and half of them have turned down an offer based on an online review. 92% of people consider online reviews important when they decide to apply. Even to apply, they look it up. So how do you optimize the online reviews? The 4 that I look at, because of the 4 that pop up the most often, and if you do a Google review, these are the 4 that pop up on the first page. Obviously Google. Google is an absolute, but don't forget Indeed, Facebook, and Glassdoor. And make sure that you have a good online presence there, that you have that you go and claim that page if you haven't, that you're going on there, you are encouraging candidates and employees to go out there and post positive reviews. And then if you do get negative reviews, it's really important to respond to them on there in a positive way, in a proactive way. Even if that person is a total jerk and they are saying lies and whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We have to be positive on there. We can deal with that person privately, but we need to be positive so that people that are reviewing those see that. Make it part of your onboarding process. If you have candidates to go through your process, say, what do you think of the company so far? If you have new employees coming in, now's a great time when they're excited and they're positive, go on and they can post something. And then make sure you let hiring managers know and just reinforce to them. I can't tell you how many hiring managers I've talked to that go, oh, online reviews don't matter. Oh, those are just disgruntled ex-employees. Yeah, that's what they are. Yeah, that's right. And that's what your candidates are looking at. So make sure that we do that. The other thing that you can do to make an improvement is something really simple, but it's something that most companies don't do, which is improve your job postings. The vast majority of job postings out there, 99% of them, read like a job description. And we need to realize that a job description is internal and a posting is external. They are different things. We do not copy and paste them. And while many of you are thinking, well, that's just common sense, I talk to many people who say that's common sense, but that's not what they actually do. So we need to make sure that our job description is not the same as our job posting. The job posting needs to be a marketing piece. It needs to be something to attract people. And it needs to be what we call candidate-centric versus employer-centric. Almost every job posting out there is employer-centric. This is what we want. If you're good enough, you're allowed to apply. That's basically what the tone of it is. It doesn't say that, but that's what it says. Instead, it needs to be focused on certain things. We need to be creative. We need to identify what the selling points of the job are. We need to describe to them, paint a picture of how their life will improve coming to our company and in that job. And granted, sometimes we've got jobs that just frankly aren't that great, right? Just by the nature of what they do in that job, it's monotonous, or it's dirty, or it's hard, it's hot, it's whatever the things are. It's stressful. But we need to look at what's the positive. How do we create a positive environment outside of that? And that's what we sell. And I'll give some examples here in a little bit. We obviously also want to be truthful and realistic and give an accurate depiction. These are actual quotes taken from job descriptions or job postings, excuse me, on job boards. It's really easy to find the employer-centric ones because that's what, like I said, 99% of them are. We say things like, the ideal candidate must possess the following skills. We are looking for candidates that can do this. Are you hardworking and dependable? That's the one that always cracks me up. Or we are looking for hardworking and dependable workers. Well, who do we think we're screening out on that? Because I have yet to find somebody who doesn't think they're hardworking and dependable. They think they're misunderstood. They think they have bad luck. They think that everybody's against them. They think that the people are being unfair to them. But very, very few people will admit that they are lazy, that they are not hardworking and dependable. It's always something else is coming up. So we're not really screening anybody out by putting that on there. Maybe we're making ourselves feel better, but we don't screen anybody out. If we are screening anybody out, it's probably the semi-actives that are looking and going, I don't like the tone of that, or doesn't really apply to me. Must be able to pass a drug screen. That's another one. Candidate-centric ones focus on painting a picture. I equate it to a realtor taking you into a house and showing you the dining room and saying, can you see your family having Thanksgiving dinner here? Can you see having holidays here? Can you see having all those things? They're painting a picture of, can you see yourself in this house? We need to do the same thing. Are you looking for the next stage in your career? You'll have plenty of time for your personal life. Have you always wanted to do this? You are the type of person who enjoys. So we are speaking directly to the type of candidate we want to attract. We are painting a picture and we're making it all about them. If we just do this, we will attract more of those semi-active candidates that are out there looking at the job boards, looking at the same jobs over and over again, and we catch their attention. The unemployed and the active are going to apply to everything anyways. And in fact, the job boards encourage that. You apply to a job, the job board comes back and says, congratulations, you've applied for that job. Here's 25 other jobs similar. Would you like to apply to those? Quick apply. I just applied to 26 jobs. So the unemployed and active job seekers are not who the job posting is for, other than just to have it out there. They're going to apply anyway. So real quickly, which job would you apply for? And this isn't a bad job posting, but it is very much an employer-centric posting. We're in need of an experienced tool and warehouse manager to handle the daily operations. It's all about, here's what the job is. This one is more candidate-centric. You're looking for a job that provides extensive training and room for growth. People have commended you on your attention to detail, and you are always, and it goes on to describe hopefully that person where they go, yeah, that is me, and that does sound like what I want to do. It's not a glamorous job, it's general labor and equipment operator, but they're painting a picture that this is what we think you want to do, and this is a good job for you. I want to talk about candidate engagement now, and I can touch on a couple more topics here, and then we'll open it up for questions about the last 10 minutes of this. But candidate engagement, if we think back to that pie, we have right now 11% unemployed. We have another 9% active job seekers. That 11% unemployed is not applying. They are for the most part not applying to jobs right now. They're waiting and seeing. They've been getting the 600 a week. Most of them are not applying. That's why you see the job boards laying off people. LinkedIn just laid off a ton of people in their talent area. It's because people are not applying to jobs and companies aren't posting on there because they're not getting any kind of return. I just talked to one of my clients 2 days ago. They just signed up with one of the major job boards. They put 40 job postings out, and in the first, I think it was 3 or 4 days, they had 1 applicant. So the unemployed are not applying to jobs right now. We need to go back and instead look at all the people that we have come across in the past. Maybe they were the ones that got away. Maybe they were the second choices and didn't make the first cut, but were very, very good. Maybe they just fell out early on in the process, or they got another job, or whatever happened, or maybe we just never got to them. Those are the people we need to go back to, and we need to try and get them to come from their existing job to our job. We need to be looking at that 89% that are employed and getting them to move. The first thing we do is utilize our database, whatever it is. If you've got an applicant tracking system, a CRM, an HRIS, whatever you're using, spreadsheets, whatever, get everybody into your database, get all your candidates into your database and run the searches there first. Make sure that you are keeping all of those people that you've spent time and money and effort to recruit, and that we still have access to them. And then what we want to do is ongoing communication with them. And we're going to tailor our message differently based on where they are in their talent pool. And we don't know that because we're in many cases reaching back out to them for the first time. So we always assume, excuse me, we always assume that they are passive, and we start to hit them with that. And so we want to talk to them about things like career, talk about our company culture, give insight into that. Then we can start to sprinkle in things that appeal to more semi-active and active job seekers. And I got another slide on this that I'll go into detail. For those of you that have large databases, it's hard to do this manually. So you want to look into different types of mass and automated communication. There are mass texting tools. There's candidate engagement software out there that allows us to basically create marketing workflows similar to like HubSpot, where we can reach out to them on a regular basis. And then we reinforce our credibility and try and build this relationship by sharing relevant content with them, being a resource to them. We then want to connect with them on a personal level. Excuse me. And I don't mean we're going on vacation with them. I mean connect with them on a personal level, a deeper than surface level. So we find common interests. You know, what is it that they like? Is it sports? Is it different things? We want to stay away from family and religion and politics and that kind of stuff that gets us into trouble. But how do we connect with people on a more personal level so they start to connect with us and with our organization? And then we interact with them socially. And by that, I mean on social media. We do the reviews that we talked about, the online reviews. We look for their LinkedIn status updates, Twitter updates, Instagram, YouTube. How can we interact with them a variety of different ways to stay front of mind with them and to actually engage them and build this rapport and get them to come back? One of the things that we did with one of my clients last week is they were having real trouble getting people to come back to work. And they had been doing job postings as usual, weren't getting any kind of response. And I said, you need to go into your database. You need to take recruiters and assign them to specific people in your candidate pool, whether that's by skill set, geography, whatever it is. And then send out a message to them and say, I just want to let you know I'm your dedicated recruiter. I'm your main point of contact for our organization, and would love to have a brief conversation to see where you are in your career and just to make a connection. Here's a link to my calendar for a quick 10 to 15 minute conversation. We did that with a small company in a relatively rural place that was really struggling. They had 2 recruiters working on this. That next day, they had 24 people sign up for those 15-minute conversations using Calendly or Time Trade, one of those scheduling tools. Even Microsoft Office now has some ability to do that. So that's one way to get people to drive them back to you. It's amazing. They won't return your call, they won't return your email, they won't return your text, but they'll sign up for a 15-minute call with you. So the last thing I want to talk about, and we'll open it up for questions, is what if you can't hire right now? And I get that a lot. You know, Tom, I just can't be hiring right now. There's too much uncertainty in our industry or in our market, and but we have people out there that we're interested in. Well, rather than kind of kicking the can down the street and saying, well, you know what, we really like this person, but we can't hire them. Let's check back in 2 months. Right? We've all heard that. Let's just check back in 2 months. You've lost them. As soon as you say, let's check back in 2 months, odds are you're not getting them if they're really good, because they're not going to stop being recruited. They're not going to stop looking for jobs if they're actively looking because you said, well, let's revisit it in 2 months. So instead, if we really think we're going to hire this person and we really think they're going to upgrade our team and be an asset to our organization, let's have some sort of commitment now that we can then deliver on later if possible. And so that's where this letter of intent comes in. And I've actually uploaded it into the handouts. Feel free to download the sample of that. The letter of intent or contingent offer letter is based on certain assumptions. You know, we're not able to make you a formal offer today, but we believe that we would be able to bring you on at a future period of time based on what we're seeing in the economy with our business or whatever. And because of that, we'd like to go ahead and make you the offer now so that you know what you're getting. We'd like to go ahead and start to get the gears going. We can have an anticipated start date if it makes sense. But it's important that we make sure that it says it is non-binding, right? And some people go, wow, that's great. Some people go, well, what does that do, really, right? Think of it as it's very similar to like the college athlete letter of intent. You think about that, and basically that college athlete is committing to a school, and that school is committing to them. There is mutual commitment. But you hear all the time of people backing out of it. But the vast majority, so it's non-binding, but the vast majority of those actually do happen because they've made that but just keep those lines of communication and keep that enthusiasm up. And it gives you an opportunity to just strengthen the relationship, so it makes it that much easier when you are ready to bring them on board. So just to wrap up, listen, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. This is unprecedented what we're going through. This isn't even once in a generation. This is once multi-generations of what we're going through right now. There are people that are sick, people dying, people that are out of work, that are struggling. There are all sorts of things going on, but it will pass. And we need to realize that this will be a temporary crisis. We've already seen that the worst has hit us, unless we go in, unless something unexpected or we hit a second major wave or whatever. But even then, we should be better prepared for what we're going through. So it's important that we don't let this temporary crisis impact our long-term talent strategy. And if nothing else, it actually gives us a chance to sit back and say, what do we want to do moving forward, so we can actually come out of this stronger. So thank you for your time. I am going to get Scott back on here. See, Scott, have we had any questions? If you haven't posted a question, but you want to, go ahead and post it into the questions area or the chat. We can monitor both of those areas.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. That was very, very informative and interesting. I know our marketing team we were going back and forth on Slack discussing these things as you brought them up. One of the things we were chatting about is our ads and trying to make them more candidate centric. And we're like, oh, we thought we had it to some degree, and then we're like, no, we need to make it more candidate centric. So it's going to be really useful to us going forward. Can you talk, just delve into that like a little bit more? So suppose we have a job that we just don't have that much information about. And of course, I always tell folks to try to get as much information as we can, but sometimes we don't get all the information that we need, or it's just a very, like you said, it's a very mundane job that there's not a lot to it, maybe. So how do we build an ad when the job is maybe, you're standing there all day making widgets or whatever it is, and that's pretty much it, how do you make
that? Listen, somebody who wants variety in their job is not going to be happy no matter what we say if they're going into a highly monotonous job. Mm-hmm. So, I think that you take a look and say, who are the people that would enjoy doing that, or maybe not even enjoy it, but are content with doing it. And so I think it's good to go to people who have been successful in that job and ask them, what is it that you like? And I think a lot of times what you find in those types of jobs are you'll get people to feedback and they go, you know what, I got enough stuff going on in my life. This just allows me to kind of zone out and just do something and focus on it. Or I like having repetitive activities. I like doing the same stuff over and over again. So first, find out what it is that the people that are in that job like about it. Find out what they like about the company. A lot of times it has more to do with the environment, the culture, the company, their coworkers, than it does the job. The job might not be glamorous no matter what you can get it to do, but it then comes down to they treat us very well. My best friends are in this organization. They encourage teamwork and they encourage those types of things. So I think you got to look at that. We always ask when we take on a search, what are the 3 selling points of your company and this job? And if they can't name off at least 2, then we are very frank with them and we say that's a problem. We've had clients that have said, I can't think of any, or the ones they think of really are not a selling point at all. And so that's also, kind of a red flag for, if your company or that hiring manager or somebody really struggles to come up with what the selling points are, then you got to take a step back and say, okay, well, we got some work to do. That's why would somebody want to actually work here? So
yeah, they're going to have to pay a lot of money if there's no selling.
That's right. Yeah, we're just going to have to be above market.
Yeah, for sure. Another question was, what are some ways that the agencies and the companies that you recruit inexpensively. Like, I mean, we all do the job boards, we all do the big things,
Yeah.
pretty, on a pretty similar scale. So when you're
Yeah.
talking about just narrowing down to an office, what are some things that a branch can do to drive some folks that they might not otherwise get?
Yeah, and this applies to anybody recruiting. So several things. At the end of the day, the best employees come from referrals, and yet most companies don't spend enough time and effort and marketing and technology on referrals. And so take a look at your referral program. Is it robust? Is it, is it consistent with the types of positions that you're hiring for? So, a referral for somebody making 12 bucks an hour is much different than a referral for somebody that's going to make 150,000 a year. And so we need to take a look. Is it kind of commensurate with the level, the compensation level, frankly? So referrals are one piece. The other one is go back and take a look at some of the job boards that maybe have fallen off the radar. What I've seen over the years is this cycle of job boards rising up. They become the industry leader. They start pricing themselves. Yeah, we've seen some of the top ones have 200 to 300% increases year over year in some cases. They then fall off, and then other ones come along or whatever. There are new job boards that are coming up all the time that are inexpensive. What we have to look at not quantity of applicants, but quantity of hires, and the ROI needs to be on hires, and it also needs to be a per hire amount. So we may be using Indeed, for example, and getting a lot of applicants, but the ROI is really low when it comes to how much we spend versus how much we pay. And then we look over here at, say, Monster. We don't get a lot of applicants on Monster. Monster doesn't have as much visibility as Indeed, and we don't make as many hires, but we don't spend as much either. And so the ROI actually comes out per applicant. So I would look at that. The other thing that I would look at, I know we're running up against the time, is go back and do grassroots recruiting. And where is it? And grassroots recruiting is the same as like grassroots politics. We hear about that. It's feet on the street, maybe not literally right now, but it is getting out to those organizations that are helping people find jobs. It is getting out and being part of the community. It is getting out and having visibility that goes beyond just posting jobs on job boards. Right now, most people, the overwhelming majority of people, are not looking at job boards, but they're looking at other things. Look at social media. Look at Facebook is becoming the #1 recruiting tool for many companies, and for good reason. It's cost effective. It has access to people that are not actively looking for jobs, but will be open to it. It gives you access to a different group of potential candidates. So there's a lot of reasons to take a look at like Facebook or others, and even other things. YouTube video is real big. Instagram, we're seeing more companies utilizing Instagram as well. So I would say take a look at all those different areas to do that. Now I have others, but we're out of time. So
That sounds great. Real quick before you go, top 3 job boards. What are your favorites right now?
Top 3. I don't know that there are 3. Here's what I would say is that I just had a conversation with Talent.com, which used to be Nuvu, which is an international company that's really been starting to make headway in the U.S. I think they're worth looking at, and they're much more cost effective. They are now the #3 job board. I think LinkedIn for professional positions is still very strong with that. I think Indeed and ZipRecruiter right now are really driven on trying to send you candidates, whether or not they're legitimate candidates. And I'm not saying they don't apply. I'm just saying they may not have known that they applied when they quick applied all. They're very focused on that, and they're very expensive. So Indeed and ZipRecruiter, a lot of my clients are moving away from them. I would take a second look at Monster and even Career Builder. They've dropped way down, but they also right now are very competitive and again may provide to have that ROI. And then if you are a specialist, then I would definitely look at the specialized job boards, whether those are like healthcare, like nursingjobs.com and or IT, DICE, and those types of things. So that's what I would look at.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tom. Really great presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. You got my email there, or reach out to Scott or anybody else with the Luttrell Group. And thanks again. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everybody.